Welcome to the Irresistible Workplace Initiative podcast, the place where leaders come to learn how to create a workplace where people would be crazy to leave. Join your hosts, Holley and Tony McConnell, as they serve up stories, strategies, and real talk that you can actually use today. Let's get into it.
Welcome back to the Irresistible Workplace Initiative podcast, the place where leaders come to talk about how to make a workplace that would be crazy to leave. Got Tony McConnell with me, as always, today, and we're going to be talking about clarity, Tony.
I love clarity. Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure.
You weren't very clear on that.
I know. Clarity is a tricky one, but it came up for us recently with our IWI leadership table that we're doing. And tell me why you chose clarity as one of our very first topics of discussion.
The biggest reason is because clarity is almost essential for trust to be built. And clarity is essential for accountability and for everything else as we go forward in the process of training the next generation of leaders. Clarity sets up good accountability. You can't have good accountability if people don't know what they're being held accountable for. It also is really good for feedback. Feedback feels like it's a personal attack if somebody's not clear on what you're giving them feedback about. It is just a building block that I wanted to make sure we covered right away. I didn't want to come back to clarity after we'd already talked about accountability. I wanted the group that we have who are very smart, they're a very smart group and a very good group, and they understand the pains of not having clarity sometimes. Yes. So I think they'll be really good. I think it was a good point to start with. Yeah. And as we were developing it, it just kept coming back to, clarity isn't all these. Yes. Clarity, it's kind of like trust is in everything. Yes. But clarity even is where trust actually is shown.
Yes. So clarity is kind of a general word that we could just throw out there, like integrity or anything else. So when you're thinking clarity in the workplace, kind of name me some places where it can get unclear.
One of the ones that seems to happen a lot that, you and I have talked about is role clarity. What is my role? What are my expectations, and what are your expectations of me? And what are my expectations of people who are supporting me? Yes, but role clarity is one that will bite you in the rear.
That's right. Whose is this
really
to do?
Quick.
Yeah.
And
really
if it's
quick. What does it say? If it's everybody's, it's nobody's.
Yeah, if it's everybody's, and if you got more than two people responsible for it, then nobody's responsible for it. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's what I like about EOS is, when you have the accountability chart, which is one of the best clarity tools out there, is, you got your 4 or 5 things, 6 things in your box that you are responsible for.
You. We talked a lot of that the other day about clarity of expectations too. So not even just the role itself, but how maybe something, people make assumptions, right? Oh, it should get played out this way or that way. And so whenever there's a gap, what do you think? If I tell you something and I'm not clear, there's a gap in communication. Oh, yeah. So the gap is a kind of a dangerous abyss.
It is a dangerous abyss because it gets filled in by the other person, and it never gets filled in to the positive. It's usually negative.
Yes.
It's all. We all as humans, our human nature is to take us to filling it into the negative.
Yes.
And it never gets filled into the way that it should be.
Yeah. Well, you started with our group the other day by telling a funny story, and you had a funny picture to go with it. And I don't know if we'll be able to put that or include that, but try to make it clear if somebody were just listening to the story, a fun but very memorable way that you learned about clarity in the military.
Yeah, as a young lieutenant in the 90s, I was a attack helicopter troop platoon leader, and I had like 16 warrant officers. And about 8 enlisted guys that were in my platoon, and the warrant officers were all older guys, and and some of them were even Vietnam era guys, and their job was to teach me. Their method of teaching me was I don't know, it probably wasn't unique.
They would call it immersive,
it was very immersive. But anyway, we're in the field. out in the woods, in the field, camping out, whatever you want to call it, helicopters parked everywhere, and doing our field problem, and the chow truck comes up, and it was basically a Army GMC pickup truck at the time before Humvees come up, and had all these Mermite cans of our food. It was the breakfast chow, and we're in our tent, and it was a big old frame tent, and this warrant officer, he goes, he's a W4, been in for 30 years probably. Okay. He's like, "Hey, Lieutenant, what's the uniform for chow?" And I said, "Helmet and pistol belt." And so I go back up to the chow truck, and I'm sitting there with all my uniform on, my flight suit and all my stuff, and looking like some Top Gun. Not really. And I'm sitting there with our company commander. We're just sitting there talking, and here come these three, 40 to 55-year-old men, something like that. They're all W4s, come walking up, and they are wearing boots, pistol belt, and a helmet, and nothing else. And the company commander, Charlie Harvey, looked over at me. He says, "Tony, what are your troops doing?" And I was like, "I guess they're teaching me the valuable lesson of getting a back brief."
Yeah.
Did you understand what I said? We call that a back brief. Yeah. So I guess I wasn't clear enough.
Wasn't clear enough.
But anyway, Charlie had a camera in his pocket. He always did. He pulled it out, and it was down here on his leg. Pulled it out, and as they're turning around to go back, he snapped a picture.
Love it.
That picture stayed in our orderly room for years.
Yes. Oh man, it's such a good story though, because hey, that's what you told them.
That's exactly what you told them. That's exactly what they did.
They did exactly what you told them, which goes to show why clarity as a topic gets the way it gets, because you couldn't have been more clear, and they couldn't have answered you more
They
exact.
Executed it to 100%.
100%. And so, but what I did, it's what you didn't tell them, right? And
they missed those. In the military, in the Army, they call those implied tasks.
Yes,
they missed the implied task of, you put on some underwear, your T-shirt, and your flight suit.
This part is assumed, which we saw how that turned out. But, we've talked about that so many times about unwritten rules.
Yeah.
Unwritten rules, and I think
they're the killer, man. Yeah. They're the killer of culture. They're the killer of productivity. You spend, if things aren't clear, then you spend more time getting clarification.
Yes.
Just be clear.
Yes.
Be clear and be honest. Honesty is good.
Yeah.
Even if it's painful. Painful honesty is better than just poo-pooing something.
Yes. Yeah. Most people, when they know what's expected, can handle the harder stuff. It's the confusion where it feels more pain comes into it, I think. I'm looking back at a newsletter article that you've written for us, and you've got, at its core, every employee is asking a simple question: do I understand what's expected of me and how I can succeed? So if the answer is yes, that's great, move forward. But if they don't know what's expected, what comes next? What's...
I mean, as leaders, we aren't clear all the time. No matter how hard you try to be, you're not. Mm-hmm. And but then we want to hold people to the standard that it is.
Yeah.
That what we had in our mind. I guess something and I don't think I've had it in the newsletters. I've slept since I wrote it.
Yeah.
But we should ask ourselves, where am I not being clear?
Yes.
What things, where in my day-to-day activities or in my team am I not being clear in my organization?
Yes, yeah. And we got into a whole discussion around the phrase, which people are now saying don't use, does that make sense?
Yeah, does that make sense?
Because we'll try to explain ourselves, and we get into this sort of, we say these certain patterns that come up,
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Well, that can be condescending for the other person. But we said, hey, we could just replace that with, was that clear?
Yeah.
Was that clear?
Does that make sense? Almost sounds like, are you smart enough to follow me?
Exactly.
You're picking up what I'm laying down.
Yes. And one of our young guys at the table said, I've used that before, but I did say, am I making sense? And that makes it feel a little more like at least you're asking for, am I being clear, But yeah, so frustration can be caused by confusion big time. When there are unwritten rules, I wonder what are some of the questions we can ask to realize when those are in operation and get clear things on the table. Because to me, I guess time frames is an example.
Oh yeah, time frames are deadlines.
Yes,
time frames
deadlines. Yeah.
You know, is, hey, when you get a chance, can you get to this?
Right.
Do you really mean when you get a chance, or do you want me to drop all this other stuff I'm doing and do this?
Right. So priorities. That was one of the ones we talked about, right? Clarity of priority. So if someone comes to you and they're your supervisor and they're like, hey, when you get a moment, work on this, you don't know or maybe can't sense from the urgency without asking further questions. Do you think most people feel confident to clarify the priority with their supervisor, or should that maybe go the other way around?
50-50.
Yeah.
I think a strong culture, where there's a lot of psychological safety and there's a good amount of feedback involved. And, if our 6 pillars are all being, practiced on a daily basis and leaders are being intentional, at all levels, I think the safety to ask,
right,
doesn't make you want, don't look down at somebody like they're, well, why did you ask that? Did you not understand? Well, no, they didn't understand or they wouldn't ask.
That, right. It obviously wasn't clear. And I think that came up in our discussion where they go, well, you don't want to look dumb.
Yeah.
I mean, if we could just say that out loud for everybody right now in the workplace, most people do not want to look dumb.
That's
and
right.
they will do anything to avoid it. And so even when you need clarity to move forward, the fear of looking dumb is stronger than the need for clarity sometimes.
Yeah, it is. And, in a high-performing environment or a competitive environment, I almost say cutthroat, but it's not really cutthroat. But in a competitive environment where if you're trying to get that little edge over a competitor, asking may give a perception of you're not quite ready yet. Yeah. And that's not good. I mean, it's not a good thing.
Yeah. You said, we're talking about the funny story that you told that, well, I didn't do a back brief. Explain, that's kind of jargon that I wouldn't use, back brief, right? Maybe I know what a debrief is. Tell me what a back brief is. And
a back brief is normally like if you go into an operations order briefing or to get ready to go do a mission briefing or something like that, you go in and the briefer will stand up and they'll go through the whole thing, and then you'll go around to the various leaders and get a formal back brief. Okay, this is, like if I'm a company commander, a battalion commander, and I'm getting a brigade briefing, they'll be like, okay, Tony, what are you doing? And you go through each sequence of events so that, we know that you follow this. Everybody's stuff is synced up and they know that you know what you've got there.
Right. They've had to put it back in their own words back to you. Yeah. And I wonder if that can be translated right to the workplace.
Same thing. It really is. It's really just a quick form of feedback. That's all it is. You just, you just go, I could have asked, okay, now I said pistol, Kevlar and pistol belt. What did you get? What are you guys going to be doing?
Yes.
And they would have said, oh, we're just going to wear a pistol. And I still might have missed it because I assumed that they weren't, trying to.
I love it. Me. That's what do they call it? It's a good allegory, to say, man, it
developed me early in life.
You'll never forget that image of those fellas. And I've seen it, and it's burned in my brain too. Them walking away, the back sides of those 3 guys with those belts and boots, it'll stay with you. So assumptions are a big part of it where clarity and frustration can come in. So we talked a little bit in our meeting about outcomes that are well-defined, visible, observable, measurable. Like, how does I can't remember the exact acronym, Tony, if you could remind me, but I know we had, let's see, defined, visible, measurable,
time with a time
bound. That's it.
Yeah, it's almost like any milestone when you're building milestones or you're building the rocks in the EOS world of you want something that's clearly defined, something that's measurable. It's almost like having a smart goal. It's the same thing, really.
So say somebody comes to you and they're like, hey, when you get a chance,
what is that time? What is get a chance?
What does that mean? So what are some questions if I came to you and said, Tony, when you get a chance, can you contact so-and-so about the event we're having in July?
Yeah.
What more would you need to know? What kind of questions could you ask around something like that,
Well, knowing myself, and you said that, I would go to my default is never put off till tomorrow what I can put off to the next day.
Okay.
And if I wait till the last minute, it only takes a minute.
A minute to do it. Right,
But
right.
I need to know, is this something that you need to know so that you can, because you may have a task that you're working on.
Right. That I'm waiting on that
You're waiting on
information.
that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
What
how-
is the priority of this? Is it important?
Yes.
Is it not? And I think, if in an organization, if you just sort of standardize,
Yes.
I said sort of, that not very standard, but if you standardize, hey, this is urgent. This is not, almost like the delegating,
Yes.
the Eisenhower thing. Okay, this
Yes.
is important. And most things that are important aren't urgent, and most things
Yes.
that are urgent aren't important.
Right. So knowing
But
where
there are a few things that are urgent and important, but they
important.
shouldn't be everything.
Right. And that's where I default to. Like if someone brings me something and says, hey, can you work on this when you get a chance? I immediately think it's both urgent and important when it may not be.
Yeah.
And so that puts undue, stress on a person trying to
And
solve
you stopped
that.
doing what you were doing,
Yes.
and then you went and did that, which may or may not have been as important.
Right.
And then it takes you another 20 to 30 minutes, I think, what studies show, to get
Yes.
back into the flow of what you were working on.
That's the concept we talk a lot about is flow. Like if I'm working on something, and that's one thing about our work environments now, and this is just a general statement about why they are not irresistible, is the amount of distraction that we have due to technology and notifications and everything. So anything that interrupts the flow of work, and if something is interrupted and come in and handed to you, or a question is asked of you, or what is it people say they can't, hey, have you got a quick minute? Well, I do now because I've broken my flow.
Drive-bys.
We bought these little things at Dow Smith Company, and they've been used to some degree of success depending on how the person uses them, but a little light indicator, like if this thing is on red, let me finish my task. And that is kind of, we kind of messed around with clarity on that because it was either red or green. But then there was these other little colors you could use, like purple if this and something if that, and it's like, well, what are they?
That's
Are they
clear as
good or
mud.
not? Clear
That's
as
clear as
mud.
mud.
So, or here's what would happen: the person would be on red, and they would either get interrupted anyway, or they say, "No, come on in." Well, now you're giving a mixed message, like I'm on red, but no, come on in. So, there's all these things we do to try to create it to be a little more clear, and then we struggle with that. But yeah, I like the measurable, the time bound. So a person could say, "Hey, I want to lose weight," and that's a very vague, not a smart
Very
goal.
vague, yeah.
The way they can make that is they can give themselves a deadline, they can give themselves a number, they can give themselves, other ways of marking it. So one thing you said in this article that I thought was really good is clarity creates ownership. So kind of flesh that out a little bit. So when a person does feel good about tasks they've been given, or they do feel like they know what's expected at work, how does it create that feeling of ownership?
Well, it is. It's a level of buy-in, and and in my opinion, it's really hard to own something that you don't understand,
Yes.
or you don't understand the why.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have to know all the why, because sometimes I've been told stuff and I didn't know the why,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't maybe didn't need to know the whole why. But I think there needs to be a level of buy-in for the for things long term to really matter in an organization.
Yes.
And if you can trace back to, the company's core purpose and the company's core values, and they can see how the task that they've been assigned or the outcome that they've been assigned, if they're doing delegation,
Yes.
like we, talk about several months ago, then I lost my train of thought. I'm getting unclear. No,
It's okay to pause.
yeah, the core values and the core purpose of the organization. If you can tie it back, the closer you can tie it back to that, and people can see that the task that they're doing, no matter how menial it is, it still gets it done. It's like the guy that, and I don't know if it's true or not, but President asked a janitor. I think it was Kennedy asked a janitor at NASA what he was doing, and he said, hey, I'm sending, or what he did there at NASA, he says, I'm getting ready to send man to the moon.
Yep.
So that's, if you can tie it back to the main purpose.
Right, for ownership. And also, I think with role clarity, which we talked about just a few minutes ago at the first, like, if I know for sure, it's like, let's say you and I are working together on a project, which we do. If I know for sure the outcome depends on my work on a certain part, I'm going to own it more. Yeah. Whereas if it sits somewhere in the middle of me and you, and I'm not sure how much you're working on it or how much I'm working on it, that's hard for either one of us to.
And we've had that. You and I had that at different times, and we still do, because we both kind of lean forward, and we kind of lean forward on stuff. And the stuff that we work on is so flow based. It's, and we, because when we get into it, we're into it. I'm all into it. And you're all into it when you're into it.
Well, and I think
we really struggled with that early on, trying to figure out what we were doing. But we also we were sort of building the airplane in flight. That's true. And we still are.
We worked into our roles. It's like we started with what we thought was a good theoretical role. You're doing this, I'm doing this. And then as the practicalities worked out, we're like, wait a minute, I'm in your seat and you're in my seat. But to be able to just say that, I think gave us both new energy and new ownership. Because once we said, let's swap seats, then everything was clear. Mm-hmm. And it just, it cut down on that sense of frustration or not understanding or lack of ownership on it, which it is a cultural thing. So we talk about creating an irresistible workplace culture. And you've got here, without clarity, culture becomes reactive and accidental. But with clarity, it becomes intentional and sustainable. So clarity is not just, hey, you're going to be more efficient in your job. It's going to affect the company culture. Yeah. So talk a little bit about that.
Clarity, it gives the sense of, but it really does give the sense and the truthfulness of, trust building, transparency, especially transparency. Yeah. That helps a lot. Have to think about it.
Because
there's a lot of things that it impacts. One of the ones that I really like is the feedback and the recognition. Mm-hmm. If the recognition and the feedback are based on unclear assumptions and unclear tasks, like I said, they either seem ingenuine, or they seem like a personal attack.
Yes. Yeah. To take the emotion out of it, especially around feedback, because feedback is the scary one to me. It's kind of like, we want to create a culture of feedback, but that even scares me a little bit just saying it, because that means I have to be able to receive it.
Feedback is trust with some pants on.
Yeah, exactly.
Really
I got to be able to receive it and give it. And I think that once you get more specific, so it brings some sense of specificity, that's a hard word, to feedback, where my emotions are now out of it. I'm just looking at the facts of it and the details of it, and it's more clear. You've got here, it brings consistency to leadership, objectivity to feedback, specificity to recognition, direction to growth, transparency to compensation, and simplicity to balance. So clarity it sounds like a very foundational thing to all of our 6 pillars.
It is, yeah.
And that's where it affects culture. It's almost a glue thing, just like we said with trust. Yeah. We haven't named trust as one of our 6 pillars.
Because it's in all of them.
It's in all of them. Same thing with clarity. These words that are more broad and more, that we do have a harder time, defining and getting some confusion around, they really are glue and connective pieces in our 6. So you can find clarity in every one of them, You can find trust in every one of them.
Yeah, and they go to the leadership establishing, clear goals.
Yeah.
Clear expectations, clear outcomes.
Yes. So when we met with our leadership table recently, you gave them some exercises, I guess, to do. And we need to be checking back with them. It's about time now to see how they did. So what was one, you gave them a pretty clear week time
7
frame.
days. In 7 days, I want you to, and I said, it's not going to be hard to find. In 7 days, figure out something you need to be more clear on.
Yes.
Name a person, name a task or outcome, how you're going to fix it, and write it down, and then come back and tell me what you did in 7 days.
Yeah. So we could put that same challenge out there for anybody listening to this today.
If you're watching or listening to this, there's something you've been unclear on.
Right.
Either with your spouse, with your kids, with your friends, with your employees, with your neighbors. Find something in 7 days that you want to be clear on and you want to practice clarity. But name it
Yep.
Set out, what the task is, how you're going to be clear about it, and then drop us a line in the wherever you put it at in the magic spot that these go to.
Yes. Well, and I feel like ever since we talked about it at our table, I've seen it everywhere. Because that's what we said. Hey, now that we brought it up,
lack of it everywhere.
Lack of it, exactly. Now that we brought up clarity, I'm seeing how often I'm not clear and nobody's clear, and we need to get better at it.
It goes to you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. There's a song in there, right?
Yeah.
And just to reinforce it, this last question to send everybody out on is exactly what you said. Where might I be assuming clarity instead of actively creating it? And if you look for a way, if you look for the specifics of who, when, how, what, why that you just talked about, whether it's personal or work, you're going to find out where the assumptions are and be able to get more clear. Mm-hmm. All right, good topic.
And if you guys would like, to receive our free newsletter, go to our website and just sign up for it, and you'll be getting it.
Yeah, great content.
You can read it or delete it.
All right. It's a great topic. I'm sure we're going to revisit it from time to time.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Irresistible Workplace Initiative podcast. Be sure to like, share, follow, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. We will see you on the next one.